Hi everyone, I'm Luke Hector and you're watching The Broken Meeple. This is a YouTube channel about board games where I give reviews, top 10s and my honest opinions, regardless of the consequences. We'll get on with the show in just a minute, but first a quick word from my sponsor. As a fellow gamer, you'll understand this is unacceptable. The solution? Head down to my new sponsor, Kiender.co.uk. Kiender stocks many of the hot new releases as well as some old hidden gems. Free delivery on orders over £30, further discounts on bulk purchases, and even 5% of your spending refunded back to you as points to be used for further discounts down the line. If you use the referral link in the description below and sign up for a new account, you'll get 5% discount on your first order over £60. So let's make gaps in your collection a thing of the past. Get down to Kiender and start saving today. Thank you for listening and enjoy the rest of the video.
Get on with it.
So today I'm taking a look at the expensive Lacrimosa, and I say expensive because it was €70 to buy the thing. Thank you Patreons for your support so that I can put out content like this. But wow, yeah, not the cheapest game in the world. But this is from Devir Games, and this is another one of their sort of bigger Euros in their lineup. The last time they did it was Batoku, and you might want to check out a little video I did to understand my thoughts on that one.
You were the chosen one!
Not so good, that one. So it wasn't like I was really buzzing to sort of jump into this one based on reputation. But I thought, alright, let's give it a go because it is delving in a theme that's not really been done before. The idea that you are, trying to complete one of the lost works of Mozart. And that's as far as I'm going with the theme. Because that's pretty much as far as the theme goes, frankly, because this is a fairly dry Euro game, but it's a mid-weight Euro game, mid to heavy Euro game, where you are essentially moving around a map, you're buying cards, and you're doing area control on a funky little music track down here, but the crux of the game revolves around cards. So you have these cards with the various actions on them. You'll start with some basic ones, but you can upgrade to better ones. And what you do on your turn 4 times in a round is you take 2 of your cards, and you decide where you're going to put them in terms of top or bottom. So one will go in the top, which represents the action that you're doing, and the other one slides in the bottom and represents a bonus that you will get at the end of the round to prepare you for the next round. You'll do this 4 more times, always having 4 cards to pick from, except for the last time when you have 3. And then at the end of the round, you'll have a little maintenance phase where you'll get some income based on your finance track. All the cards that you've placed at the bottom will generate story points, which is kind of like a universal currency used to do various actions on the board. And you'll rinse and repeat for another 4 rounds of the game. There's only 5 rounds in total, at which point you'll then total up all your victory points, and of course, the one with the most.
Of course!
The actions that you're doing involve the purchasing of cards, 2 types in fact. You have opus cards, which allow you to gain more money and also victory points, but also upgraded action cards, so that you start off with the starter versions and then go, oh, I can find something that gives me 2 actions, or this one gives me money as well as the action, more powerful cards of what you already have. You only ever have 9 cards in your deck. You never get any more, you just replace ones that you already had. So you buy a new card, you gotta chuck away another one. But then you also have this map in the middle to travel around. So there is I don't think I've got him out at the moment, a Mozart piece that you move around the board to different areas, and these cities will have different tiles on them which give you a bonus as long as you're willing to spend the journey points to do so. If you don't take them in the round, they'll flip over and become better versions of themselves, but essentially it's a case of pay the gold, move the piece, get a cool bonus, possibly even a end of game objective point scoring tile, although more on those a bit later. Alternatively, you're also doing area control on this Requiem track down here. So with your various little music note pieces that you have, there are 2 composers that are vying for like the right to complete the works of Mozart here. And you have these tiles from each composer, and you decide, right, well, I'm going to put a music note on this violin one here. I'll take it off my board from the respective section, get the bonus, put it down there, buy the tile for the money and story points it requires, get the bonus. But then depending on which composer the person wanted, at the end of the game, each section of this track will score victory points for area control based on which composer was chosen to pick it in the first place. So I mentioned about the theme, not going too far with it. Yeah, the theme in this is not really there, which is a shame because this was a setting that I thought, oh, it's a bit different, I mean, it's definitely a beige Euro setting, more on that in a minute, but I thought, like, with this cover and everything, it's like, oh yeah, this could be a good theme to really embrace. But it's essentially a point salad game. The best game I can compare this to is Newton. If you've ever played that from Cranio Creations, I mean, that one talks about, oh, you're doing all these inventions and going around and being like Isaac Newton and building up your library and that. And it's the driest point salad that I think I've come across since Pulsar 2849. You know, it's super bone dry. This one, pretty much bone dry as well. I mean, yes, you're completing a Requiem track. It's literally put a marker on a space and area control. Yay! And then with these cards up here, you can buy these opus cards, which, you know, are the various different works. And yes, if you have a music history knowledge, you can recognize what Bastion and Bastion is, or Salzburger's and Funnian is, or whatever half of these things are. But other than that, the fact that one's a chamber music piece and one's a religious music piece literally means nothing until you score it via a tile. You know, so you're not really going to be getting a music theme out of this. It's just a setting to apply Euro mechanics to, much like Batoku was literally a gorgeous anime Studio Ghibli style setting with mechanics thrown in and no theme. Same sort of story here. Bit of a shame. I was kind of hoping for a bit of a stronger thematic connection. So this one's going to have to ride pretty highly on its aesthetics and its mechanics to win me over. Well, aesthetics wise, it's beige. Very beige. There's a lot of beige. This board is, as you can see, very beige. You know, the box actually is kind of misleading for what you get here, because the box cover is really good. You know, you've got the full picture of Mozart, you've got the red embossed letter, you've got this red kind of shiny like picture of the wagon and that being drawn like he's on his journey down there, and in the background you got all the music notes. It's a really good quality cover. And then you get beige. And it's not that I'll give it credit, it's the prettiest beige game I've ever seen, but it's still beige. You know, a little bit more color here and there would be nice. I hope you like cream and beige, because that's the biggest color you're going to see, with some hints of black and red thrown around the place. You know, if anything, your player pieces are probably the most colorful thing on this board. But, like I say, it's not a bad looking game. I've seen beige games that look dreary and horrible and bleh, and I don't want to see them on the map. This one is actually pretty decent looking. You know, for a beige game, it's pretty nice. It's just not going to win any prizes, and certainly no other cards, because the cards are just generic action cards with some symbology, and that's about it really. There's nothing, no other background on the cards, or the cards have the same back face. So, you know, and even the map is not particularly that interesting. I mean, you got a few little trees dotted around, a couple of people, but other than that, it's a pretty basic looking map, you know, much like the map in Talatum was. You know, if anything, this probably has a little bit more detail than what that map did, but yeah, not much more. So, you know, artwork wise, meh. The cover is the best thing that's looking in it. Component wise, pretty good though. You know, these are decent sized counters for the story points and your music notes. The cards are pretty decent quality cards, and you're gonna need them for this bit, which is easily the best component in the game, the dual layer boards, which fold over, which is really cool with the nice little logo and that. And it's got a removable, like, kind of a reference aid for the phases in all the different languages. I mean, this thing came with about 6 different languages in the box, you know, it was kind of insane. But it's dual layered so that you can put these cards in and take them out, which is easy to do if you don't sleeve the cards. Depending on what sleeves you use, you might find it quite a hassle to get the cards in and out. Some work better than others. If you go online, you'll find loads of different references from people where they've said this sleeve works okay, this is too big, too thin. Sadly, they didn't think to make this a little bit, shall we say, more easy to do for sleeves. And personally, I just think you shouldn't sleeve this game. I mean, you've got a hand of cards, but it's like 4 cards at a time. They'll come out on the display, and yes, you may scuff them a tiny bit if you play this game religiously when you're slotting them in, but I don't think you're going to play this game quite that religiously, and so I think these cards will hold up for a decent while, but you'll just find it a lot easier to get them in and out of this thing if you don't sleeve the cards. That's my personal opinion anyway. The rulebook is a little bit hit and miss. In terms of the rules of explaining the game, the rules aren't particularly difficult to understand. If anything, they're written very well. But whoever wrote this rulebook clearly needs to learn the meaning of order.
What happened to then?
We passed that.
When?
Just now. We're at now.
Because much like the Nidavellir rulebook, the Nidavellir rulebook is not the worst rulebook in the world in terms of explaining the rules, but the order is so jumbled up in it, it makes it an absolute chore. Here it's not as bad, but it's still like questionable as to why the order is like this. You know, you start off with the content section and the setup. Okay, good, that's what I kind of expect. But then you quickly get into player turns, and then it explains all the actions in detail before explaining what happens at the end of a turn and the maintenance phase. It's like, no, tell me how the round order works, then go into the main actions. Why do it then? But then on top of that, it goes into the components in detail after you've learned the rules to the game. So you don't know the anatomy of any of the cards in terms of what this symbol means or what this action means or what these various bits on the tile mean until you go past the main rules of the game. And then it's like several pages of explaining every last little detail about them. Then you get the solo rules, and then you get the reference guide, which could have been shortened down to something less than 3 pages, I think, because it does, I mean, it takes up a quarter of a page to tell you an opus can fall into 4 different types, as if anyone cares because there's no theme in this game. So the back of the book is telling you a few edge case reference ideas for like some of the tiles, but I would have more preferred a reference guide to be per player and on one sheet, you know, like I've been banging on about in every single other game I've played. The rules are not too complex. It's a relatively straightforward game to understand the rules to it, not necessarily how to do well, that's a different story entirely. But yeah, it could have been like, you know, a rulebook editor needed to look at that and just put things in the right sequence. You know, it just makes it a little bit fiddly to read. But not as bad as other games, and certainly once you've read the rules to this, you shouldn't need to reference it too often.
When will then be now?
So in terms of the various mechanics, it's kind of like most other Beige Euros, really. I mean, you know, the card system is the best part of the game for me. It's not just the whole, like, deciding whether I'm going to put it at the top or the bottom. I mean, that's really cool as it is, but also the fact that you can upgrade the cards. Much like in Newton, when you had those different action cards you got, and you could upgrade those into better actions. Same deal with this, and it's cool to sort of go, oh, that card looks juicy. Yeah, that would give me 2 actions and those. How can I afford it?
Shut up and take my money!
You know what? Bye-bye card. I want this juicy one. This one's nice. And it feels good, particularly when you've only got the 9 cards in the game. You don't have like 20 of them sprawled all over the place with too many choices to make. You're only ever looking at 4 cards, and you can get some better ones. Now, the luck factor of this game does get in the way a bit, though, because you are only looking at 4 cards with every round, and more often than not, you will end up in a situation where it's like, right, I really need to do this action next, otherwise somebody's going to screw me over, or I'm going to miss out on a really key thing to get points. Oh, all my cards are about travel and buying cards. Oh, there's nothing for Requiem or opuses. Oh, that sucks. You know, you can disregard the action to get money, but I'd rather have something in the game that lets you disregard the action in order to actually do an action you wanted to do in the first place. So, you know, in a game that's a good 2 to 2.5 hours long at least most of the time, I kind of find that that's a little bit too luck swingy in my opinion. I've had so many times where it's like, I need to do this and I can't because the card doesn't come out in the right order. You shuffle it before the start of the round and you have no other way in this game to mitigate the card draw, which is a bit of a problem.
Hello? Hello, anybody home?
But all blemishes aside, the game is a good, fun, tight experience because a lot of times you're going to be short for cash and you're going to have to think, oh, I got to spend those story points, it's annoying. But by the time you get to the 4th and 5th round, if the game is going well for you, then you should be in a position where you are generating a decent amount of story points, you are getting a decent amount of cash, and you can do more powerful effects. Buying the cards is still a fun experience and rewarding. It's just that there's only the main action, 5 main actions that you've got, I believe, and the cards don't vary that dramatically when you get ahead. It's just mainly the fact that they might give you a coin or they combine 2 actions together, but that's kind of it, really. Even the opus cards are basically the same thing, it's just variations on cost and reward. So it's not like there's a huge amount of variety in there, and you do see every card in the game pretty much, so it's not like there's going to be a massive surprise when you play it for the second time and go, ooh, I didn't see that card, you know, that one's come up. The court tiles I like though, the city tiles, because I like the idea that you have got this bonus that you can grab every now and again as a cool, like, ooh, a tactical opportunity here. And I like the fact that if you let it slip for a bit, it's like, now it's a little bit more lucrative. You know, it gets you a little bit of extra with it. And it's like, no, I'm really looking at that tile. That's pretty good, but, oi, you're eyeing up as well. Stop it. And there's definitely a lot of contention here with 4 players. You're going to be fighting for a lot of this stuff. Not so much with less players though, because the scaling in this game doesn't really do a lot. All that happens is that some of these spaces are taken up in a 2, 3, and 4 player game based on it. So more of them are taken up in a 2 player game, less in a 4 player game. But really, they don't make any difference. You might as well just leave it all blank, it makes no difference. Because what tends to happen is somebody will start off with a particular composer on a segment, and then most other people will follow suit, because the likelihood of that composer winning the majority for points is now high. So why go against them? Why create the competition when you could just join them?
Well, we're supposed to haggle.
Grabbing the bonuses on the map is also good fun, but rather inconsequential for the most part. A lot of this game kind of feels much ado about nothing. Like, there's a lot of faff and a lot of this you can do, but it doesn't necessarily equate to much. With these, most of these are just like bonuses, so I might get a couple of points with this. Whoopee, I mean 2 points to spend your entire turn to visit a place? That's not particularly worth it. But then there's other ones like, oh, I get 1 on my finance track, or I get 7 money, which is really useful, or I get a few story points, or I get to do this action when I could have just played the card and done the action anyway. But I mean, I suppose that's one way to mitigate the card luck, but it's very situational that you end up doing that. So these don't really get you many points to win the game, they just get you some cool bonus every now and again. So a lot of the times, most people don't really focus on this much. They'll occasionally do it because they see a bonus tile they like, but they're mainly doing the cards, and this kind of takes a back seat, despite the fact that it's one of the 3 main story point focuses that you get. And the Royal Court tiles, I just never found these that worth it. You've got 2 main types of it. You've got ones that are based off Opus cards and ones that are based off the Requiem. But they only get you somewhere between 4 to 7 points a piece. Bear in mind, you're getting somewhere close to, like, 80 to 100 each game. It sounds like a lot, but then everybody will get at least one of these during the game, so you're not really overtaking them by many points. And if you get too many of these, you just can't physically do them, because you can't use the same card or space to satisfy multiple court tiles. So if I get a tile here that gives me 7 points, but requires me to get an Opus card from 4 different rounds out of the 5, then I've got 4 cards there. If I get something else that requires me to get 3 different symbols of cards, I need to get 7 Opus cards in order to fill those 2 tiles. It's a lot of effort to do it, and for the points you get, not really that worth it. The only time I've really gained much from these is when I've grabbed one for this and one for this. Then it's not so bad, because you can go, right, I need to contribute to 3 bits on this track. That's pretty straightforward, there's 6 points. And then I need to grab 2 specific things from this track, or like, oh, here we go. Yeah, well, no, let's grab a card from 4 different rounds, okay? 7. So I get 13 points for 2 tiles. That becomes more significant, but never get 2 from the same area. It just doesn't seem worth it, with the exception, perhaps, of the Requiem track, because it's quite easy to spam that one, whereas getting a lot of Opus cards, not quite as straightforward. But yeah, I just never found these to have too much of an impact. On the other hand, though, you want what has the biggest impact? Opus and Requiem tracks. Oh my word, particularly the Opus cards. The Requiem track gets you a decent amount of points at the end, but if everybody's contributing to it, then chances are it will be relatively even, Steven. Maybe somebody will get slightly ahead. But the Opus cards, man, focusing on them is kind of like the golden thing I'll try to do every single game. Because these Opus cards that you get with the different perform effects on them, firstly, they get you victory points for buying them. Great, because they get you a sizable amount of victory points for buying them, and sometimes they're not even that expensive. I mean, this is 1 story point and 1 gold, and it gets you 3 points. That's a cheap deal if I ever saw one. But then they get ridiculous later on, like getting you 7, 9, 11 points for buying a card. Yes, they're expensive, but by that point you should have the ability to buy them. But then you can perform them to get more money, and money's tight in this game, so getting more money is great. But then you can also sell the music off to get more income on your finance track. So your board has a finance track which every round will get you story points and victory points and a lot of money if it's high up. It's not that difficult to get it high up, and at which point you've got a pretty steady source of points, cubes, and money to last you for the whole game. But what makes this a little broken is the fact that when you get to the top of the finance track, you get 2 victory points every time you get more finance income. It is possible to practically break the scoring in this game by simply focusing on Opus cards, getting a bunch of upgraded action cards that let you sell and perform cards as well as buy them, and then you just spam the finance selling as much as possible to basically spam a ton of points. I mean, if you sell a piece of art, piece of music later for 3 finance points increases, and you're already at the top, that's probably about 7 to 10 points for buying the card, and another 6 points for performing it. That's pretty significant, and I've seen evidence in the games I've played where somebody who focuses on that and makes it work will dominate the scoring. It happens every single time someone does that. Requiem focus is the only thing that comes remotely close to topping it. The rest of the points in this game, again, much ado about nothing. A few every now and again for a journey made, whoopee-doo. The bonus tiles each round, who cares about these? You know, you get, oh, I can get a story point counter for every travel I do this round. You might get 1 or 2, that's kind of it. You know, but then it's like, you can get a victory point if you travel this round. Great, I got a point, you got a point, you got 2 points. What does it matter? It's like why is this here? It's just another bit of faff I don't need to deal with. And it's very swingy, because if somebody has focus, say, on the sell and perform action, and then a tile comes out that focuses on that action, well, great for that player, because it's going to be insanely lucrative for them. Sucks for everybody else, and that's entirely luck of the draw. But then much ado about nothing also with the composers, because you have 2 composers to pick for each game, and there's 4 in the game, so you pick 2 out of the 4. You think, oh, that's good replay value. It makes no difference. It's like you have to go for this faff at the setup, and the setup is long. I mean, you've got a bunch of cards to sort out, you've got to put them in 5 different sections and stack them up, you've got to sort out all the tiles, and then you've got to get 2 of these composers, you've got to get their tiles, and then you've got to put them in order of the 5 different sections and in order of cost. Man, the setup in this takes ages. It's really infuriating. You know, the folded space have an insert for this, and even that is only going to do so much for you in the setup. It will help, but it won't mitigate it all. But it doesn't make any difference with these, because they basically are split into 5 different types of bonuses. You know, you get an instant number of story cubes. You get 1 cube of some type in the maintenance phase. You get a point if you buy a certain type of opus card. You get flat out victory points, and you get to do an action twice if you do it in the 5th segment over here. That's the sequence that all the composers have. The only difference is what type of opus card it matters for. So one likes religious ones and the other one likes chamber music. What does it matter? There's no theme or difference within them. And these ones are pretty much exactly the same. The victory points ones are exactly the same. The 5th one is just which action is duplicated. So in this game, you'll have the Requiem and the Art one. In this game, you'll have the Travel and the Opus one. For the amount of faff that you have to deal with in setting these things up, who cares? It's just lots of these little things in the game where I feel like as much as this game is relatively smooth, it could have been streamlined further if you just didn't bother with these unnecessary bonus tiles. If you just kind of I mean, I'm not saying you shouldn't have 2 different composers. I think that's fine, but at least make them a bit more differentiated. I mean, it says in the rulebook, I recommend you use these 2 composers each time. Who cares? It doesn't make any difference. Just pick any 2. It's not going to affect the game that much.
Well, that was pointless.
The replay value is also questionable here because everybody kind of does the same thing in every game. You're pretty much doing the Opus cards and the Requiem for points. Anything else you get is little bits here and there, just thrown in, a little bit of sprinkling of points now and again. Nothing particularly lucrative. It's this or Opus cards. That's your point scoring, that's what everybody is doing. Somebody might focus on one a lot more than the other, but other than that, you're all kind of doing the same thing in the game. And honestly, stick to spamming Opus cards. It really does work out best, really. But the rest of the game is just what everybody does every now and again. So one game doesn't feel that different to the next. Oh, this composer tile gives me a slightly different action I can spam. Whoopie-doo. The cards will come out pretty much the same. You know, you use the level 1, then the level 2, then the level 3s. But just because one particular action card comes out in a different order doesn't really change anything in a meaningful way. So, and there's only so many of these city tiles, and you'll go through them all. Every game, you'll be rinsing and repeating a bunch of them. The only thing that doesn't rinse and repeat are the court tiles, and frankly, they're all basically just similar variations of each other. Who cares? So when you play this game a few times, you go, oh yeah, this is cool, and the mechanics are decent, and it is a smooth, elegant game. You know, there's positive points there. But then after a few plays, you think, well, I've played this, and I've played this, and I've played this, and yeah, where's the variety? You know, can I do something different in this game? Nope. Alright, I'm going to focus entirely on the journey map. Well, good luck, you just lost. Okay, I'm going to focus entirely on buying more cards. Well, buying more cards doesn't get you any extra victory points, so tough luck, you lost. Great. I guess I'll just buy a bunch of art and perform it until the day go by. Yeah, you got a lot of money. Yeah, but you also lost the game because you won't score enough points. You're pigeonholed into doing those two things. Otherwise, you will flat out lose this game. It's just going to happen.
Now, there'll be plenty of time to discuss your objections when and if you return.
So Lacrimosa is generally a good game. Generally. There are some really good things to mention. I do like the card upgrading system. I think that's cool. I love it in Newton. I love it here. You know, I think the component quality is pretty spot on for the most part. I mean, the cards are good, the tiles are good, these counters are good, the coins are probably the little lackluster thing, and I can forgive the fact that sleeve cards don't fit in this that easily because, frankly, the cards are good enough quality and these boards are just lovely. Love these folded dual layer boards. The rulebook could be better though. Just saying, it's in a weird order, but it's not too difficult to understand the game. But the blemishes I have with this game do add up, and some of them are pretty big issues. You know, you say what you like about whether you think those two methods of scoring and winning the game are the true methods. I'd love to hear a third if you know one, but they're the only two I've seen do well. Opus card spam or Requiem spam, and generally you're going to be doing everything in this game anyway. It's just a case of which one you do slightly more than the other, and that's the other thing. It gets a bit repetitive. You know, you play a few games of this and you go, this is really good, I like this, I like it, oh, same old. And that's what's happening to me, because the first few games I played of this were solid. I'm thinking, oh, 8 out of 10, you know, 8 out of 10, this is a great game, enjoying it. Then dropping, then, oh, it's the same, and it doesn't really change up from game to game. So, as much as this will entertain people for the first bunch of plays, it doesn't have the legs, I think, to stand out playing it further down the line, at least not regularly. You'll pull this out once every now and again, know that you're going to focus on one of two things, and then you'll be glad you played it because you'll enjoy the card upgrading and all this stuff, and particularly at 4 players, the tightness of the game. But it doesn't work that well when you have less players in there, because you faff around doing so much setup with these tiles and with these like the blocking tokens and with these cards and the city tiles, and for the most part it's, again, much ado about nothing. So therefore it's a game that started off being really great but has had diminishing returns from repeated plays, and I think that's going to be the case because I've played it a bunch of times now. I'm now kind of good. I've had my fill of it, and now later on down the line, say a few months later, if somebody wants to play it, I'll be like, yeah, cool, we'll play it, and I'll enjoy it. I know I'm going to focus entirely on one of two strategies, but at least I'll be like, you know what, it's a while since I played this game, I'm happy enough to play it. But something like Newton gave me more variety, more different paths to victory, a bit more of a meaty experience. This one is lighter than Newton, I think, because there's certainly not that many routes you can go down, and it's not the most complex game in the world to understand. It's just fairly tight with the resources. But I don't feel like I'd want to bring this out all the time. I'd rather bring out some more thematic Euros, or some Euros which have more variety with setups that actually matter and make a big difference. So I give it respect, and I think it is generally a good game, but that longevity issue, the player scaling, the rulebook, the fact that there's no theme, they do add up big. So I gotta give this one a little bit of tough love because it's not good enough to just simply be good for a few plays. It's gotta stay strong. I'm giving this one a very strong, but a strong, not quite there yet, 6 out of 10. It's a 6 for me. It's above average. It almost gets a seal of endorsement from me, but it doesn't quite, because eventually if I was to play this game more, I'd just be like, yeah, you know what, I'm done. It would sit on the shelf, gather dust, and come out once every now and again. But a truly good Euro should be one that I want to bring out over and over again. At no point when I play this game do I feel like I want to play it straight away after. That's more for like 9 out of 10s and 10 out of 10s. But even then, when I had to play it, say, the 4th and 5th time and beyond that, I was kind of like, yeah, you know, same as before, really. Just that tile's over there now, and that card's over there, you know. Big whoop. So, as I say, it's generally good, and I give it respect. And I will play this if it hits the table every now and again. But best of the year, 10 out of 10s, I'm sorry, but there's some rose-tinted glasses, I think, with that. So that's it for me. If you like what you see, then please remember, thumb up the video, get it shared on social media, and thumb it on Board Game Geek as well. It helps to drive the algorithm, not to mention, get your comments down below. Is this a game you're excited about? Do you like the idea of what I've been talking about? Do some things put you off? Is this, for you, a 10 out of 10 game that you're going to play all the time? If so, why? I'd be interested to know why there's no diminishing returns for you on that respect. Have you found a mystical third way to score really highly in this game? Because again, I'd really like to know that one as well. But as I say, I'm interested to hear your thoughts, and I hope to respond to as many comments as I can. Until next time, you can check out more content on the show, including the recent review I did for Ottawa, the Uwe Rosenberg title, but also I'd like to check out my other review for Tribes of the Wind. I don't think this will get enough buzz, and it really deserves so. Check out my positive thoughts on that one. Until next time, take care, and remember, regardless of whose music you're playing or what you're into, it's still only a game. Bye for now.